We habitually treat human biology, sociology, and artistic creation as distinct scientific domains, assuming each requires a unique set of rules to understand. The Brain Kinematics Model approaches this differently. Rather than dividing these disciplines, it models cognitive and social phenomena as scale-invariant stress-strain dynamics operating on a continuous physical medium. Measured, precise. This is the BKM master equation, quantifying the distribution of strain within a structured system. The rate of change in strain equals the incoming input minus the system's redistribution of strain minus its true resolution, plus any internal amplification. Subjective experiences like a vivid dream, a severe psychological trauma, or a sudden public panic are quantifiable physical reactions bound by the same mathematical laws. Every system requires a medium to operate. This grid represents what the model calls the memory structure field, or M. It is the baseline architecture of a neural network, a culture, or a society. When a system encounters a stimulus, a sudden noise, an emotional shock, or an economic crisis, it receives an input load. That input physically deforms the substrate. We measure this deformation as a strain field, epsilon. Strain here is a compound physical state. In a human brain, it encompasses electrochemical shifts and electromagnetic coordination and structural memory alterations. Any event that forces a system to react bends the underlying architecture. The system now carries a physical tension that it is forced to resolve. To survive that deformation, the system has to process the tension before the structure breaks. That process is captured by the divergence term. It represents the system's attempt to route the strain down available pathways to restore equilibrium. The success of that routing depends heavily on a regulating variable, coherence, or C. With high coherence, it processes strain efficiently. A brain reasons through a complex problem. A society drafts a targeted policy. When coherence is low, the routing fails. The strain pools unpredictably and erupts into fragmentation, abrupt dream jumping, or social panic. A system's ability to survive trauma without shattering is dictated by its structural coherence. It is a mathematical threshold separating adaptation from breakdown. But what happens to the energy if the strain cannot be redistributed and true resolution fails? The unresolved strain does not decay linearly over time. Instead, it converts mathematically into a stored pattern. It becomes residual memory, a solidified architecture built out of unprocessed strain. This memory is not a passive archive. It is a latent physical tension, a compressed spring waiting for compatible conditions to activate it again. Traumatic events or unresolved problems physically alter the terrain of the system. They become permanent structural realities that dictate the routing of all future flow. We can observe this latency by tracking an anomaly, a sequence of two vastly different dreams, separated by an empty 4-day period. In the first dream, a subject attempts to climb a weak platform, hesitates, and fails to connect with an authority figure. We can map this directly to the BKM variables. The system attempted direct resolution, but the structure couldn't support the load. The task was aborted, causing the residual strain to spike and lock into place. Over the next 4 days, clock time advanced, but the underlying strain field did not decay. It remained above a critical threshold. On day 5, the second dream occurs. The subject visualizes their own internal organs being extracted and methodically reconstructed into a piece of art. The variables reveal this is the same strain package reemerging under low-input, high-amplification conditions. The system shifted its mathematical strategy. Unable to process the tension through external structural climbing in the first dream, it compensates with generative internal reconstruction in the second. Temporally separated events are not statistically independent variables. They are discontinuous surface ripples driven by a single continuous strain flow ocean. Just as communication connects individual neurons, it links individual humans. When information flows between people, it acts as a conductor for strain, aggregating individual mental dynamics into a collective field. The variables correspond directly. Sensory inputs to a brain become real-world events. Neural memory scales up to historical memory. In this macro network, the news media apparatus acts as a societal strain flow operator, N. News functions as the dreaming layer of a collective population. It compresses complex reality into narratives, redistributing and reshaping public strain across the network. When social coherence is low, news coverage causes chaotic pooling of this strain, manifesting as public panic or ideological extremism. In this framework, news media operates as the physical mechanism a society uses to dream while awake, digesting and attempting to stabilize collective trauma. All of these phenomena answer to a single algorithmic loop. Formulating a scientific theory, passing a social policy, or painting a canvas are all mathematical resolution paths. They are the shapes strain takes when it becomes form. This creation only materializes when two thresholds are crossed simultaneously. The system must have accumulated sufficient imbalance, and it must possess enough coherence to organize it. Existence is a continuous sequence of these problem resolution cycles. Waking events provide the directional strain, while dreaming and creative production provide the field reconfiguration. Creation is simply the transient, visible phase of an imbalanced universe calculating its way back to equilibrium.